So I had just come back from CBC and the Craft Brewers Conference, and came back from Denver, brought a ton of edibles with me, right? But they're edibles, so I couldn't eat them. So here I am at 420 Fest.
I got a ton of edibles. I'm like the Weed Willy Wonka.
I'm just walking around dishing out edibles to people that I couldn't eat, but I wanted to make sure everyone else is having a good time.
The Candyman
Here's
can.
edibles. I was like, okay, or like Oprah, the Oprah of edibles. Like, you can have some edibles, and you can have some edibles, and you can have some.
All right, welcome to Fretboard TV. We've got the legendary Del Hall here. And has really become a minor celebrity, and I guess maybe a major celebrity within Cincinnati in the past 3 years, thanks to the beer diet. We'll get into that a little bit. So if you don't know Del, he is currently on day 36 of fasting and only drinking beer. For his diet. But we'll get in that later. Del, I appreciate you coming here. I know you reached out to us and said you wanted to be on TV, and I said, well, what do you want to talk about? And I think you want to talk about anything.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I have a lot of respect for you guys. I love what you're doing here at Fretboard. I'm a big, creative person. I love branding, and as you probably see from what I'm doing at 16 Lots, I have a big piece of that. And I've always really respected your brand. I love things that are on brand. I love things that are like on point. You guys just you hit it out of the park. From actually having a house band, you guys play wonderfully. I was just here.
Thank you.
I was just here. I heard you guys, and I've sang with you guys before.
We've been practicing.
I've sang with you as well.
Yes.
I love the whole music theme, from the names of the beers to the decor, the strings, the fretboards, even your logo with the pick on it. I love that. I mean, you guys have really just nailed it. And from someone with my creativity streak in me, I appreciate that so much.
And so Del Hall here, legendary beer guy in the beer community, has recently transitioned over to become an owner, co-owner of 16 Lots, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so when we got our start, 16 Lots was building out their facility.
Yeah.
And so they used the same construction company we did, and so I got to be a part of watching what they did and what you guys ended up doing there. So I just want to I want to go into a little bit about how you just mentioned how creative you are, and you mentioned that you like our theme. Well, you've got some themes going on. You came into 16 Lots and you're like, let's go. Right. I mean we're talking a lot of rebranding here.
Absolutely.
Right?
So, I've been in beer right at like a decade now.
Sure.
On the commercial side, actually making a living in it. I've been a beer fan my whole life. I was raised by hillbillies. So literally there's a picture of me in 1977 with a bottle of beer in my mouth from my dad.
I think I have one too.
So
we're about the same age.
Yeah, exactly. So it's one of those things. But so once I got into beer, and I started, selling beer and being a distributor, I started noticing what works well with consumers, what doesn't work well, and then also which breweries, actually have a theme and a means to the madness, right? And so I've actually paid attention to that over the years, and there's been so many of them that have stuck out. Off the top of my head, one of the first ones I think of is the first time I walked into Three Floyd's tap room in Munster, Indiana, right?
Great tap room.
And you walk in, and everyone knows the history of Three Floyds, and you can see that it's satanic and it's devil worshipy and all kinds of stuff.
Hard rock.
And then you start, and you start getting into it, and you notice, the story that they're called Three Floyds because F is the sixth letter of the alphabet, so FFF is 666. I mean,
right.
they take it that far.
Right.
All the decorations in the tap room are, some sort of demonic gifts from folks, and all their beers are kind of from Zombie Dust
the movies
to Dreadnought.
Those movies are all weird movies.
Yeah, they're playing kung fu horror movies and stuff like that.
Right.
So
that's a fun tap room.
From packaging to the tap room experience, they nailed it. That's a theme, and they've done so well with that. So I've noticed that over the years, and absolutely, you guys. That's why I noticed that, because you guys nailed it.
Sure, thanks.
So I take all of those as inspiration, and to think, okay, so one of my decisions to come on board with 16 Lots was everything was done really well at 16 Lots, but it was just kind of bland, right? It was really good furniture, or really well decorated and appointed space, good furniture, just good build out. I mean, our brewing systems, the Cadillac of brewing systems for a 10-barrel system.
Sure.
Just everything was done really well. In the marketplace, there was nothing bad said about 16 Lots, but there wasn't anything great. It wasn't anything cutting edge. Just really good 4-ingredient beer with kind of a blank canvas for me to work with. So that was one of the draws, was that everything was done really well, but it just needed a little flavor. And that's what I brought in.
Let's talk about a couple of the cans here. Let's just go
Yeah.
into them. Tell me a little bit about the branding. You got the Sergeant Dell thing going on and all that stuff. I mean, it's just everything is tied in.
Yeah. So
and can one man change a brand? I would say yes.
I mean, I hope so. I mean, it's one thing to change a brand, but does
Sure.
it resonate with the consumer? Is it going to actually bring them into the tap room? Are they going to? I want to provide a drinking experience for folks, right? I want them to come in and be transported from the suburbs of Mason, Ohio, into a movie set. When you walk in, I want it to seem. I changed the lighting. We have different lights in there now. We have dimmers. I want it to seem like a movie set. So, what I've done is I love the aesthetic of steampunk. Right? I'm not like this big steampunk nerd. I walk around with goggles and top hats and stuff like that. But I like what it stands for, and it stands for like a mashup of the aesthetic of old, like Victorian England and turn of the century to new technology, right? It's like a reimagination. But when I try to tell people that I'm rebranding as steampunk, they were like, well, that was so 2012, that was so 2014. But my take on it is I want to take that same idea. And there's a lot of, steampunk is one version. There's cyberpunk, there's diesel punk, there's all kinds of these different, genres. And I want to take that and just put my spin on it. I was born in 75, so from the time I was 5 to 15 was the 1980s, like the height of pop culture. It goes past one generation of folks. It's not like us who are Gen Xers, or the baby boomers or the Gen Zs or the millennials. There's always pop culture. It's always what's popular, and it's always what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
So if I can take that, put my spin of kind of like the aesthetic of steampunk on it, and present it that way, that's what I'm trying to get at. There's really no definition of style. It's just kind of my take on steampunk pop culture.
Well, the van looks cool.
So everything I do, I tie in some pop culture reference. So every can we've done since I've been there, all the new cans, even the van, the decor, and the tap room, everything is tied into pop culture. There's a little homage on that van, so it looks very steampunky, right? It's like, because I want people to know that that's what it is. But then there's this really obtuse, right in the middle of it, this big maroon stripe that goes down the back and across the side of it, and that's an homage to the A-Team. So if you look
to the A-Team van,
you look at BA, you look at BA Baracus and driving that van. That's the exact stripe that goes down, and that's the feel that I'm looking for. I want this cool aesthetic with rivets and industrial, but there's got to be something pop culture inserted into that, and that's what that van is.
So what's the most rewarding thing you out of the last 10 months being with 16 Lots?
So it's got to be the artwork. And looking at these cans and things that I've released, because I've looked at beer cans for a living now for years and years, and to have visualize something in your head and actually seeing it come to life is so rewarding, right?
Who do you work with for the artwork? Is that you or
no? So I do the art direction.
Okay.
But I'm artistic, and I've done lots of different things. But I'm not at this level, not even close. I have a really good personal friend of mine. His name's Greg Tobias, and he's worked for Universal Studios. He's worked for Disney. He's worked for Hollywood Productions, and he lives in Dayton, Ohio. He's a huge beer geek, and he freelances for me. So in the brewery world, he only freelances for me. So every time I commission him to do one at a time or a series of cans, I give him what I'm thinking and the direction that I want from that, and how I think it's going to lay out. And he works his magic and comes back to me with art.
That's cool. So I guess conversely, what's the most challenging thing you've had on your plate in the last year? I mean, it's a new company, right? You're coming from a place that you've been for years. and now you're going through this whole rebranding process. I mean, there's always problems. There's
Yeah.
always challenges.
So I mean, probably one of the things that frustrates me the most. We've been around for 3 years, and like I said, we've always done really solid beer. Everything's been really solid, but nothing's been cutting edge or very creative. Like when it comes to like experimental styles and things like that. And now we're getting into that, right? So we have our first beer in barrels right now. We've done our first sours. We're getting ready to do our first milkshake IPA. And I'm writing most of those recipes. So a lot of those, it's not just influence. It's, hey, like literally, this is the flavor profile. These are the hops. This is I'm writing the entire recipe. So it's getting the public to change their perception of 16 Lots is a German style 4-ingredient brewer to taking a risk and trying some of our more avant-garde stuff. So, the challenge is not alienating our true and tried, loyal customers, but also adding this new palette that's out there with the millennials.
How often are you in the tap room talking to these guys?
Man, I'm in the tap room probably only 2-3 times a week. I'm concentrating right now on sales and distribution a lot. So, I'm a big relationship person, and I've spent a lot of time building relationships with accounts and bar and restaurant owners. And, so I'm out there cultivating those, trying to get us in new places, making sure that we're servicing the ones that we have. So really, and I come from, the model that if I'm in the tap room, I'm not really doing my job.
So I just want to get into the beer diet
Yeah.
for a little bit.
Sure.
And for all those folks who don't know, for the last 3 years, you've been doing the Lenten beer diet, which is what the monks used to do back in the day.
Absolutely.
And so what they would do is fast for the 40, or it's actually, I think, 45 days total is Lent. It's supposed to be 40 days, but then you add in Sundays and you get, I think, 40,
exactly. And that's
45.
That's the thing with, the whole religious tie-in was like they wanted to mimic Christ's fast of 40 days and 40 nights in the desert.
Yep.
But if you put in the Sundays, it actually makes it 40. Easter will be the 46th day.
46th day, yeah.
But, I've gotten so much notoriety from doing this. The cardinal in charge of, Europe called me my first year
No kidding.
and wanted to find out why I was doing this and was I mocking religion or,
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'm not a religious person. I'm very spiritual. And, but I don't like the dogma of religion. I don't like, I like to do my own thing.
Sure.
And he said, well, just so you know, the monks probably always ate on Sundays because Sunday is a holy day.
That's the cheat day.
That's the cheat day.
Yeah, that's the cheat day. So if you give up, so I'm born and raised Catholic. So if you give up anything, let's say I give up candy, Sunday is the day, or to eat the candy, right? So, but you never went that route.
No,
right?
and I can tell it's really easy why, and it's kind of selfish. It seems counterintuitive, but this is kind of selfish. So the first week of the beer fast, it's really hard. I mean, it's one of the toughest things. If you ever try it, it's going to be one of the hardest things you're ever going to do.
But at 3 years in, you probably know what
I do,
getting.
and
you got to know what you're getting
this
into.
This year, I look forward to it.
Yeah.
I look forward to it because I feel so much better. But that first week, you're breaking those addictions, right? You're breaking to sugar and to carbs and fast food and preservatives, like everything that goes into the standard American diet. You're breaking those addictions. Then week 2, it's markedly better. So it's a lot easier the second week. It's still pretty tough. And, you learn that hunger comes in waves. It's not on this sliding scale that the longer you go, just the more hungry you get until there's a topping point and you can't stand it anymore. Hunger comes in waves. So by week 2, it's better. But after week 2, you pretty much get into the groove. You know that, hey, this is I've broken my addiction to just pulling in a fast food place and eating. I've broken my addiction to just sitting around bored and just noshing on something. So I think that if I were to let myself cheat every Sunday, I would go through that process every time.
Yeah, it would be brutal, right?
It would be brutal.
Yeah,
it would be 6
sense.
straight weeks of hell instead of 2 weeks of hell, and then I can coast, for the rest of it.
Talk about the virtual tip jar. And your goal is to lose 40 pounds and then also raise money while you're doing this.
The first year I did this, I didn't know if I was going to die or not. Right? I mean, I was myth busting the whole monk diet thing, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know if I was going to die. So I wasn't going to associate a charity to this because I'm like, yeah, you know what? How bad would that look? This
Right.
guy is like, oh, I'm going to drink beer only, and then he raises money for so-and-so, and then I die. That would have been horrible.
Right.
Well, it turns out
Sure.
I did wonderfully, right? I did great. I felt great. I felt like $1 million. I felt like I was in my 20s. All markers of health improved. It was wonderful. So the second year, I said, I now need to use this notoriety that I have for good, right? So
Very cool.
And a lot of times, and you know this, in the beer world, you know, we talk about pastry stouts and things like that. People always say, like, you know, that's diabetes. And I had that stuck in my head with the whole Wilford Brimley, you know, like diabetes. And at the time, it wasn't shortly before that Ben Capadegli, the owner of Cappy's, his son Cole was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes.
Oh, wow.
So I thought, man, this is a good tie-in. You know, people talk about beer being a cause for diabetes, and we have my good friend Ben, he's affected by it. Let's do a fundraiser. So I ended up raising over $10,000 last year for the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation.
That's awesome.
And that was also in the middle of a pandemic. The press started again. I started doing all those interviews. Everything was going swimmingly. Jimmy Fallon mentioned me in the monologue at the Tonight Show. You know, and I thought, this is it. Like, this is going to be a big year.
That's so
and
cool.
then it was
Everything.
cut.
Everything.
It was coronavirus.
For everyone.
All headlines from then on out. I get furloughed. You know, I'm basically, you know, quarantined, and I'm drinking beer, not eating. It was just horrible from then on out. So this year, to me, it was a no-brainer. I needed to raise money for something associated with coronavirus and COVID. And, you know, 90% of my friends and family, you know, work in the service industry. And I thought, you know, I see the stories constantly. Every day there's a new account that's closed. If you go try to sell beer places, you know, places that were open 7 days a week are now closed Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They're only open Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They're like, you know, their hours are way cut. So I thought, let me raise money for, you know, bar and restaurant workers. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to start my own GoFundMe. You know, I go by Sergeant Dell a lot, like on Rate Beer and Untapped and, you know, all those sites.
Is the Army background?
Yeah, I'm a 9-year Army veteran.
Yeah, so thanks for your service.
You're welcome.
Were you a sergeant?
I was. Yeah,
Okay.
and that's why,
There we go.
obviously that's why, so that's why I go by that. So, you know, I was like, all right, so I'm going to start a GoFundMe. I'll call it Sergeant Dell's Virtual Tip Jar. The first year, people kept making little memes and stuff about me all the time, and the one that I loved it, was Sergeant Dell, a real American bureau. So I said, I'm going to make this GoFundMe. I'm going to benefit bar and restaurant workers in Southern Ohio and Northern Kentucky. And, you know, all the notoriety I get will be pushed with a plug for this charity. And let's see what we can do. The barrier for entry on a lot of these other things, such as Barstool, which you had to make videos and edit them and all these things, I said, all people need to do is put up a poster with a QR code on it and some table tents with QR codes, because I don't want bars and restaurants to be supporting this fund. I don't want them to donate. I want their patrons to donate. I want people to get the word out. So if a bar and restaurant was interested, all they had to do was reach out to me on social media. I'm real easy to get a hold of, and they can say, hey, we want in. And I gave them a marketing kit. K&8 Print and Design in Oakley did all the printing for us, and they did that for free. They did table tents and posters. I gave them a free kit. All they had to do was put them up, and they were checked off the list. And now I have just under 50 bars and restaurants that are going to benefit from the money that I raise.
How's the fundraising going?
So right now we're at like $12,250.
Great, awesome.
So it's not much when you divide it up among, let's say 50, round it off to 50. We're at like $225 a piece, but that's 50 different places that's going to get a $225 tip at the end of this. And I'm not done fundraising.
No, it's great.
And you can find the fund. So if you're watching this and you want to donate, if you just Google Sergeant Dell's Virtual Tip Jar, Dell Hall, if you go to Sergeant Dell on Instagram, all of those things will lead you to the GoFundMe. You can go to GoFundMe directly, Sergeant Dell, and you can donate there. Go right there. Do you hear that? Look, it's like I'm an expert YouTuber.
We have this question. If you could choose only one brewery's full catalog of beer to get you through the beer diet, who would you choose? You can't choose your own.
Dang. Oh. what comes to me straight away is Branch and Bone up in Dayton, Ohio.
Great beer.
Right. So
Branch and Bone.
If people don't know this, they are literally my best friends. We homebrewed together. We were all in Draft, which is Dayton Regional Area Fermentation Technologists. That was our homebrew club up in Dayton. It's called Draft.
Great acronym.
And we all used to just hang out and do bottle shares together. And one of the best things about, and everyone knows this. All right, I'm gonna get a little snobby. When you start getting into beer and you start learning about all flavors, and you start learning about sensory, and you start going down that route, you start judging beer, and you start getting into homebrew competitions and judging homebrew competitions and BJCP and all those good things. And after a while, you just get really sick of drinking bad homebrew. Brett Smith, who's the co-founder and head brewer at Branch and Bone, you would actually look forward to his homebrews. And I do a pretty good Brett Smith impression. He was always like, "Hey, Dale, man, try this beer, man. This was really good." I considered Brett the best homebrewer in the nation before he went commercial. So, and then out of our group, I was the first one to actually make my living in the beer industry. They do such a diverse catalog of beer. So, Brett's IPAs, mainly almost all of them are hazy, New England style, low bitterness. He does some excellent West Coast styles, though, so very clear IPAs. His lager game is on point. He pays homage to the Pilsner Kells of the world. He did some foeder-aged lagers. His sour game is ridiculous, whether it's a quick sour. They do a ton of wild and spontaneous beers. They even have a cool ship up there. So if I had to drink the rainbow, if I had to drink the gamut of beers only, it would have to be theirs.
I got another question. If any musician or band could provide the soundtrack to the documentary about this beer diet, who would it be?
Oh, man. Oh, you guys suck.
We ask the hard questions here.
That is very hard. I mean, Jesus.
You can take your time and sip on some beer.
Well, I am. I'm actually enjoying a Vlad right now, and it's my hands down my favorite.
So cheers to Vlad.
I love Vlad. Cheers.
Yes.
Logo's out. So I'm right. Okay, I'm gonna just lead you through my process. In my head right now, I'm torn between the Black Keys and the Avett Brothers. Okay, I'm gonna rule. I'm gonna say it's the Black Keys, just because they're Ohio boys. So they are from Ohio.
Yep.
Right. They're from Akron, and so they do slow ballads, and really, their lyrics are really poignant, but they rock out, and that's what people don't understand about Avett Brothers as well. The Avett Brothers do that. You hear all these slow ballads and this Americana folksy feel, but man, their live shows, there's nothing like them. They're
the best.
Out. They're amazing.
Awesome. Yeah.
And their lyrics are, man, they're up there. They get you right in the feels. So I love the Avett Brothers, but I'm going to lean towards and say I'm going to have to pick the Black Keys because they're Ohio boys, and it's Ohio against the world.
What kind of music were you raised on?
So I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, in the late 70s and through the 80s. We had a big RCA console, and on that console was always Conway Twitty, Loretta Lynn, Hank Williams, that kind of like old country. So my mom was from Tennessee. My dad was from Kentucky. So we were Scotch-Irish Appalachian people. And my dad was a huge bluegrass fan. And you could pop in Dr. Ralph Stanley or Del McCrory. So I was raised on bluegrass, honky-tonk, country, and gospel. But at any given time, I'm listening to reggae and ska. I'll listen to Delta blues and jazz. I'll listen to swing, Americana, heavy metal, rap. Pop, Taylor Swift. I don't care. You're talking about how I grew up and kind of like what influenced me and like with my musical tastes. In 1982, Dayton, Ohio, and I went to Dayton Public Schools. We were dirt poor. My dad was a roofer growing up, and basically half the year he could make money, half the year we were on welfare. I was the youngest child of 6 kids, right? So I had all older brothers and sisters. So here I go to Dayton Public Schools, and in 1982, they decided to desegregate Dayton. Dayton was very segregated. East side was white, west side was black in Dayton. And they decided we're going to take east side kids, put them on the west side schools, west side kids, put them on the east side schools. Even though we had the same schools, they were 2 blocks from my house, I had to take a 45-minute bus ride to get to my elementary school growing up. Well, a lot of people in the neighborhood had more money than us and could send their kids to, like, Catholic schools and things like that. And that was just not an option in my world. So I took the 45-minute bus ride. It was desegregated, but because of that difference, there were a couple years I was the one of 2 white kids, like in my entire class, right? So I started listening to my friends' music. So here I am raised on country and gospel and things like that. And then now I'm in a predominantly black school, and now I'm listening to Kool Moe Dee and Run DMC and, music, Sugar Hill Gang and stuff like that, like really old school hip hop influences, Jackson 5, so I'm listening to like the new urban music, what's going on, like with hip hop and R&B at school, going home and listening to if my parents are playing music, is the old school stuff. My brothers are listening to AC/DC, Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, and Dylan. My sisters are listening to the Grease soundtrack, to the Gibbs Brothers, Bee Gees, ABBA. If you put on country or put on Snoop Dogg, I can rock either one of those.
All right, so let's pretend you go on a music diet and you can only enjoy the tunes of 3 different bands during Lent next year. If you make it the entire way through, you get front row seats to a concert featuring all 3 of them. Who are the bands?
Oof. All right, so
they're going to be alive. They're going to be alive.
Look, and I know. Look, I'm what's considered an Anglophile. If you haven't guessed yet, I love the British culture. I love English stuff, right? So first off the bat, I'm going to say Sir Elton John. I think that would be amazing. I love his whole catalog. It would be a fun show, and then to be able to sit front row. I mean, you're probably sitting next to like royalty. Hoping maybe the Queen would be sitting next to me at like an Elton show. Who knows?
Sir Elton.
2, I'm going to say the Avett Brothers, because I kind of had to diss them a little bit earlier with my whole soundtrack to the to my beer diet, because I went with my local Ohio boys, the Black Keys. So I'm going to say the Avett Brothers. Man, the 3rd one, that's a tough one. Whew. All right, so I'm gonna say someone that probably not a lot of people know, and I'm gonna go. And this is a little bit of a story, but it's also I'm gonna cover my bases. I'm gonna go with this guy named Pokey Lafarge. Pokey Lafarge is like this mix. He's like a St. Louis guy, kind of influenced a lot by like New Orleans. So he's got this like cool jazz, like swing, Americana, bluegrassy feel. It's the only way I can say it. Seen him live a lot of times, but this one time I saw him live was right after I had started, and I feel really, really bad about this. I just started at 50 West, and we're launching our cans. Cans were not available to the public yet, and he was playing at Southgate House over in Newport, Kentucky. So I get a hold of the Southgate House, and I say, hey, I'm the director of sales of this brewery. I want to supply, Pokey's band and Pokey with all the beer for the night, give them some hats and swag and stuff. Maybe they'll wear them on stage. And they were like, hey, that's fine, if the band's cool with it. So I reached out on Instagram to Pokey himself. He said, yeah, man, come on, bring it on in. The boys would love that kind of thing, I just deck them out. Every canned beer we had, cases on cases, tons of hats, trucker hats, T-shirts, all kinds of stuff. And I left them a note. I was there when they were doing sound check, so I got some cool pictures with everybody and stuff. And I left them a note saying, please just, if you can on stage, give us a shout out. We're a new brewery, and we're new to this game of producing cans and distributing beer. Give us a shout out, please.
That's all you're asking.
That's all I was asking.
Yeah.
And he said he would.
I have a feeling.
Said he would.
We know how this works out.
So, as I'm watching the show from the crowd, jumping up and down, having a good time. He has some microphone issues and kind of loses his train of thought.
It's the worst, by the way.
So, I'm on pins and needles.
You got technical issues. It's the worst.
Dude, I'm on pins and needles. I'm like watching this and thinking like, okay, I want to get this big shout out to the crowd that, at that time it was 50 West Brewing Company. So you can 50 West supplied this, Del Hall, that kind of thing. Like, how cool would this be? Like, I got my phone at the ready so that I can put that on social media. So the whole concert, I'm on anticipating the shout out so I can get it because this will be huge. He's one of my idols. It'll be amazing. He has the microphone issues, and I kind of can tell it really affected him, and he never gave us a shout out. He never, and boy, it really, I was so bummed after that. Show ended. I sent him a kind of a shitty, salty Instagram message and was like, man, I can't believe you did that. Like, I waited the whole show. Like, I kind of didn't enjoy the show as much as I would because I was always ready. I had my camera ready to record the video, and it was just, I'm just really disappointed in you, Pokey. Really disappointed. He texted me back and said, hey, I'm really sorry. I had those microphone issues. That was the last thing on my mind, and obviously that should be the last thing on his mind. We got all these people there paid for a show. They need to they want a good show, and he was worried about entertaining them, not worried about giving us a shout out. He could care, less about that. And I said, no worries, don't worry about it. I was just disappointed. Lo and behold, after that, I had no idea that he'd done this kind of pre-show. He had sent out on his Instagram stories, he had sent out this big thank you to me and 50 West with a panning through the green room and showing all the beer, and he had done that already.
You're the heel now. Yeah.
I am totally the heel.
You're the heel.
And I feel so bad about that, so I'm going to say publicly, Pokey, I am so sorry. That was really small of me, and please take it maybe as a drunken Instagram, sliding into your DMs. Really sorry, bro.
How long ago was this, though?
5 years ago.
All right, yeah.
4 or 5 years ago. And it's I know, but I feel really bad about that. But how about this? We're at Fretboard right now, right?
Here we go.
We're at Fretboard Brewing. You guys have this amazing stage. Pokey, can we make it up to you? Please, can you come to a show at Fretboard? We're right in the outskirts of Cincinnati, Ohio. You have a big fan base here. They have an amazing stage, amazing sound system, and we'll make you king for the night. And I'm sure Fretboard is down with this.
Well, I'm totally down. Totally down. We'll make sure we have Fretboard beer and 16-lot beer. It'll be beautiful.
Amazing, and it'll be my olive branch. And again, I feel like a heel. That's literally so I'm using that third one as just kind of very selfishly because I feel so bad that I was an ass. I was an ass.
Pokey, if you see this, please come play. We talked about the music diet. Let's talk about the beer diet and how you come back from the beer diet. Do you go right into the steak and potatoes? How does it work?
No. So I don't want to bring it down a little bit, right? Because this is heavy stuff. But there is a syndrome called refeeding syndrome, and we learned about this from the Holocaust and from prisoners of war, that people who have been starving and have not had enough nutrition, when they start eating again, they have to kind of take it easy. So if you eat too much too soon, there's something in your intestines called a mucosal lining, and basically a mucus in that lining is gone. And trust me, I know it's gone after about 10 days. It leaves faster on just all water, but with beer it's about 10 days. That's the stuff that kind of slows down the food in your intestines and holds on to it so that the villi inside can absorb the nutrients, and that's no longer there. So if it also acts as a lubricant to push things through your intestine. So if you don't have that in you and you start eating a bunch of heavy meat and things like that, it can actually plug your system up and stop it, and you would have a backup of system, and you can actually die from it.
So no steak for you.
No, not for about a week.
Okay.
Not for about a week.
All right.
So I take it very easily. Right? I take it very easy. I start with bone broth and guacamole, raw vegetables, soup, hearty soup, into like seafood and sushi, and then into meat, like poultry, meat, right? So I got this whole this whole way of doing things. So I'll just tell you a little story real quick about last the first year I did this. So the first year I did this, I got invited down to Sweetwater, right? 420 Fest, which 420 was actually on Easter that year. And shout out to Nick Luciano with Sweetwater Brewing. He's a Dayton guy of mine, a friend up in Dayton. He invited me to be a VIP at Sweetwater's 420 Fest. Amazing, right? I mean, it's one of the best music festivals around. And he knew that I'm a big Avett Brothers fan, right? Huge Jason Isbell fan. They both played. JJ Mofro, Revolution, Moon Taxi, which until then I had never heard of Moon Taxi. Now I'm a huge Moon Taxi fan. Pigeons playing ping pong. Just a great lineup.
That's a great lineup
of music, as you would imagine. It's they call it 420 Fest for a reason. I didn't partake. Because I didn't know my tolerance.
But they have the beer, right? You know,
right.
But
I
420.
But we're talking about weed here, and I didn't partake because I don't know what my tolerance was. I mean, I smoke weed occasionally. In our industry, we kind of do that from time to time.
It happens.
But I didn't know my tolerance because I wasn't eating, so I didn't really want to mess with that. I'd also just come back from Denver, so I had just come back from CBC and the Craft Brewers Conference, and came back from Denver. Brought a ton of edibles with me, right? But they're edibles, so I couldn't eat them. So here I am at 420 Fest.
I got a ton of edibles. I'm like the Weed Willy Wonka.
I'm just walking around dishing out edibles to people that I couldn't eat, but I wanted to make sure everyone else is having a good time.
The Candyman can.
Edibles. I was like, okay, or like Oprah, the Oprah of edibles. Like, you can have some edibles, and you can have some edibles, and you can have some edibles. And I got rid of all of them. It was amazing.
The Candyman can.
So it was such a good time, good experience. Saturday night, 420 Fest. Midnight strikes. That means I can eat again. It's Easter. I had a backpack with me. The festival was over, and we were at a bar, restaurant right outside in downtown Atlanta. And I asked the restaurant, "Is it okay if I have this bone broth, and but I'm like, here, I'm that guy, I'm that beer guy,
the beer diet guy."
And they were like, "Oh yeah, it's great, and people were filming me, so I had all these cameras around me, and opened this bone broth and drank it cold, and it was gross." It literally was the worst experience ever. And I was like, all right, we got to go find food. We left that restaurant in search of a kitchen that was open. We're in downtown Atlanta, and there wasn't very many things open in Georgia after midnight. And it was me and a bunch of beer reps. And we're just walking the city. And finally I found this cool little Mexican restaurant. And their kitchen was open till 2 a.m. And this was by this time it was 1:32. So there I am. I'm scouring their menu. What can I eat? Guacamole, and it was heaven on earth.
Avocado, superfood.
It was
right?
amazing.
Yeah,
right?
superfood.
I mean, normally I eat avocado every day, and it was the best. I don't know if this place really has the best best guacamole in the world, but after not eating for 46 days, this was the best guacamole I've ever had in my life, and it so hit the spot. It was amazing, and that was it. Then I just started eating my raw vegetables and soup, and about a week later I had meat.
Would you recommend this diet to other people?
No, not what I do. So, in the grand scheme of things, I'm writing a diet book called The Beer Diet. And it's basically how to incorporate craft beer into a healthy lifestyle. What I do is kind of gimmicky. And, it works. It 100% works. My cholesterol improves, my blood pressure improves, my fasting blood sugar improves, I have no brain fog, my sense of smell improves, all markers of health. It's amazing what it does, but it's pretty extreme. But in my diet book, what I'm planning on laying out is whatever works for you, whether you want to do the keto diet, you want to do the paleo diet, you want to do Whole30, are you a vegan? Do you want to do the Mediterranean diet? Do you want to do intermittent fasting and time-restricted eating? Do you want to do prolonged fasting? Do you want to do the 5-2 diet? Do you want to do the carnivore diet? All these different diets that are out and about, right? I want to show you how to incorporate beer into that lifestyle because we have enough flexibility now in beer that we can do that.
You do a great Guy Fieri impersonation. It's fantastic. Number one, why Guy? Is it just because you look like him?
Well, it was. So it started as a Halloween costume, maybe like 5 or 6 years ago.
Yep.
So I was close enough that, you know, like when my hair's like all spiky, you know, it was like my hair was spiky enough. It was dirty blonde. It wasn't like blonde. And then like you put glasses on someone.
He's got like the tips, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
He's got
like, completely.
yeah.
And I have it down now. If you look at those pictures, like they're amazing. Like I got it dead on. So it started as that. And then a buddy of mine owns a food truck down in Nashville called Thunderbird Wings. And he was at this Halloween party. And, you know, so I took this picture with him, like doing the whole Guy Fieri, like, you know, with like my big jewelry and like, you know, everything. And he took that picture and put it in his food truck. He was like, Del, it's funny. Like, I have this picture of me and you, and people like just see it, and they're just like, oh, look, Guy Fieri was at his food truck. And it's like, not at all. Like, that's actually Del Hall. But
he's an impersonator,
right? But I got such a good reaction from folks that were like, oh my god, like we thought Guy Fieri showed up at this Halloween party. So I say stuff all the time. Like when I'm actually, you know, dressed up as him, then I'll say like, it's Fieri. You know, hey, I'm Guy Fieri, mayor of Flavortown. And bring the voice into it. The whole thing, like, you know, it's like, man, I'll tell you what. This Fretboard Brewing Company, outstanding. Have you ever seen the smoked out barbecue over here? They have portions so big, they should serve them on a trash can lid.
You do a mean Guy Fieri.
Yeah.
When you're famous, because that's where you're trending, who's going to play you?
I'm a huge Matt Damon fan.
I love Matt Damon.
Huge Matt Damon fan. Big fan.
Yeah. Great movies.
One of my favorite movies of all time is one of his little smaller known one. It's called Rounders. Poker guy, right?
Yeah.
So I'm a big poker player. Like, well, not anymore, but I used to be. Like, you know, I used to be a big poker player. I used to go to Vegas like once a month, play cards.
Did you really?
Oh, yeah.
Fly out to Vegas.
Yeah. They paid for it. Like, they paid for my airfare. They paid for my hotel. They paid for all my food and drink.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. So back in the day, like, I used to go to Vegas a lot.
This goes back to the all or nothing. You're all in.
Absolutely.
Or you're not.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Yeah. I played in the very first World Poker Tour event at Bellagio. It's a $10,000 buy-in tournament. I played in that. I won a smaller tournament. It's like $150 to enter. Yeah. And I won that and got to play in the big one. I just love Matt Damon.
Matt Damon
he's
played
actually
you?
my age, but I would love that. Like Matt Damon would, you know, I mean, he had to put on some weight. But then he'd have the opportunity to take some off too, right? Because he's like a method actor, so he could like, I had to bulk up for my role to play Del Hall, and then I had to do keto to work it off of me. I went to this celebrity trainer and he worked it off me, so he could, you know, he would run the gamut. I see Oscar. I see an Oscar in his.
Last thing before we go, any previews or anything? 16 Lots, what you're doing, what's coming up?
There's some things I'm very proud of. So we filled our first bourbon barrels.
Great.
Right? So
What'd you put in them?
A nice big Russian Imperial Stout.
Great.
Should be
perfect.
Close to 13%. And I got some really cool barrels. I have a really good relationship with Remus. So I got some Remus barrels. I got some Eagle Rare barrels. I got some 1792 barrels. I got some of the Maker's Mark barrels that have the stave program where they put the extra staves in to give it more of a character. And we now have a fermenter in the brewery that is now dedicated to sour beer.
Yep.
That's big.
You got to do it.
And then just the whole foray into milkshakes and, you know, taking on pastry stouts.
Beautiful. Now, so if you haven't been to 16 Lots, go up to Mason. They're right in the heart of Mason. Much appreciated for you coming on today.
Dude, it's super fun.
Yeah.
I mean, you just give me a microphone and I just start talking.
No, I love it. Del Hall, thank you very much. 16 Lots.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
One final push for my charity. It's Sergeant Dell's virtual tip jar. Google, GoFundMe, Instagram. Just look for Sergeant Dell. Don't think you have to throw in $100, $50, $20. It's a virtual tip jar. If you can throw in $2, $5, throw it in there. It all adds up. 100% of proceeds are going to bars and restaurants here in Southern Ohio, Northern Kentucky, and trust me, these folks are out there on the front lines. They're working hard. These are the bars and restaurants you go to all the time that you support, and just make sure that, you know, that they feel that love.
Beautiful. Yes, virtual tip jar. A lot of tips lost this year. Just
Yeah, absolutely.
can't say it enough. So, all right, Del. Thanks. Cheers.
Awesome.
All right.
Cheers.
Yeah, 10 more days about, right?
Yep.